All my loving I will send to you. Oh yeah, I've got that, you know. But it's it's funny. It's not so much can I hit you some notes? The question is for 2 hours, can you hit those notes? And I do that. And he said, that's what I do now to prepare for whatever reasons. But everybody's different. So you got to do what you do, but you can't not do anything. It's kind of a blur to me because I've been performing for 40 plus years. And 90% of the shows you do, you think of the travel. It's not so much getting on stage and singing and performing, because that's the easy part, really. But it's the travel.
Hi, this is Sifu Slim, author of The Aging Athlete. In this book, you're going to get to hear about two different groups of former high-performance athletes. One group, which is made up of 90% of the former athletes, does not do physical activity on a regular basis and tends to suffer the consequences of a sedentary lifestyle. The other group, which is made up of 10% of the former athletes, is doing physical activity on a regular basis and tends to thrive through the aging process, or at least has a better chance at coping with the aging process. We could have taken these folks to a lab and done all kinds of tests on them. Instead, we slowed them down and sat them down and asked them, in their own words, to describe why they're wired the way they are, so that we all, former athletes and non-athletes, can use some of their inspirational and motivational and mindset lessons in our own lives. I hope you pick up a copy today. You can go to theagingathlete.com. And when you have a chance to read it, I'd love to hear back from you to find out what your thoughts are on the stories of these aging athletes. Hello out there in internet land. I'm Sifu Slim, and I am in Santa Barbara, California, and I'm delighted to have Tony Kishman, all the way in Syracuse, New York, originally from Tucson, Beatlemania man, musician, traveling man, entertainer, classical mystery tour, and the list goes on from there. Tony, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Sifu. Nice to be doing this today.
So I told you originally that the highest I've ever been, and so I'm a clean liver, Jack LaLanne mixed with Bruce Lee, trapped inside the body of Gilligan. So that's my pumped up version of Gilligan right there. I have this probably similar bone structure to Michael Jackson and Gilligan, but I work out a lot like Jack LaLanne in a very balanced way. And I get high on life just about every morning. So that's mind, body, and spirit connecting with outdoors and nature, diurnal living, which means I see the sunrise. I'm often seeing the sunset at the end of the day. So that's out in the day, in at night. That's called diurnal living, and that's millions of years of animals and hunter-gatherers doing that type of living. Have you do much of that, Tony, diurnal living?
Well, I can tell you that I do get up at 5:30 a.m. and I'm in bed by 9. So I don't stop. I never sit down. I'm actually surprised I'm sitting right now. But I have prior to COVID, right? Prior to COVID, my life was a lot different. We would go to the gym, we would do our thing, my wife and I. And then after COVID, we just kind of like our show stopped, performing. We didn't have any scheduled performances anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. And it threw a wrench in the wheel, to be honest with you, of my physical activity. I did try to work out and do my video aerobics is one of the fun things we do. But yeah, daily, I would say that I do more than most, but less than I should be.
Got it. So the circadian rhythms, since you travel a lot and go through time zones, I do as well. I've been living as a digital nomad for 4 years, going on five, spending the summers in Europe, a little bit of the winters in warm places like Florida, Colombia, and Hawaii, and then in between in Santa Barbara, and then a little skiing in Colorado. It sounds like I'm a jet setter, but I would call myself a seeker of good deals more than a jet setter. Um, how have you figured out a way with the circadian rhythms of the body to handle the travel thing? And you've been doing that travel thing for what, 4 decades?
Yes. It's if I could, it's kind of a blur to me because I've been performing for 40 plus years. And 90% of the shows you do, you think of the travel. It's not so much getting on stage and singing and performing because that's the easy part, really. But it's the travel. And I don't know how I did it, but I basically liked the way we would travel a day before because then it takes a toll on you. And then the next day you're recovering from that trip, you know. And then you get up in the morning and you kind of get on that new time zone, even if it's 3 hours or even two, it does throw a wrench in the wheel. And I found the hardest cities to go to would be the Asia, to do anything in Japan or in that neck of the woods. That is almost impossible to do unless you spend 3 to 4 days to get on that time zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anything in the US, I found a way, I just found a way to do it.
So when we got started, you asked me about Sifu. So China is a gigantic country. Most people know the word sensei, which is from Japan, very small country, about the square miles of our state of Montana in the US. But Sifu is China. In Mandarin, it would be Shifu. So the movie Kung Fu Panda from 10 or so years ago, they had a master Shifu who was kind of a Yoda that helped the lead character come of age in a balanced way. And then Sifu would have been Bruce Lee, the Cantonese side, Hong Kong, and the Canton part of China. And it
Yeah.
means father, teacher, master, those types of things. And it's not to be a dominating force. It's really to find the gifts within the person. So if you're in a martial arts studio, the Sifu has to treat you differently than he treats another student. You do have to follow the rules like everyone else and bow in and respect the area and follow the rules, etc.
Yeah.
But the Sifu, being that good father, like a little bit of an uncle, would also have to find your gifts and your hindrances and work with those.
Yeah.
So I write books. Here's book number 1, Sedentary Nation. So it's the history of physical movement from the hunter-gatherers through the couch potatoes, and in between you stop at the agricultural revolution, a lot of work, and the industrial revolution, a lot of work in machines, right? And
Right.
in the cover here, I show our ancestors, maybe our grandparents or great-grandparents in 1910, and my subtitle is "The Answers Are Not Found in the New Millennium, They're in 1910." So the idea behind that is gyms weren't around. Jack LaLanne was one of the pioneers of gyms. They go back to Olympic athletes and in ancient Rome, et cetera, in ancient Greece. But the idea of going to a gym was not part of our grandparents, great grandparents' life. When you lift up a saddle or you lift up a bag of grain and you walk from where you have to purchase that or the barn or where you're keeping that to your home, and you're stirring pots and chopping wood and working with animals and walking to town, there's not a lot of sedentary behavior going on. Maybe you could chime in and see what you think about the difference between our ancestors and ourselves.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I turned 50, I kind of like a little light went off in my head, and I started thinking to myself, I don't think the answer is drugs. If you're not feeling well, you got a stiff neck or whatever, it's not to go to the doctor and say I have a stiff neck, I need drugs. And I was determined to fix any ailments I was
Yeah.
having by going to a holistic doctor and just getting some real information, of what to do physically and mentally and so forth to correct some of the problems I was having. And I absolutely fell in love with the whole idea, as far as diet, as far as movement, like you mentioned. If you sit down all day, all of a sudden this starts to hurt, that starts to hurt, and this and that, and you go, gee, I've got pain and I can't deal with it. But if you simply move, if you get up and you're walking around and you're doing things and lifting and doing stuff, I don't have any pain when I do that. It's funny how if you simply just take it in your own hands and not think of it as painkillers, but to relieve pain by just moving and doing stuff, that to me is the answer. And so when I turned 50, I was like, I went on a holistic diet. I stopped eating beef. I stopped eating pork. And all these things started to really kind of feel better because I wasn't taking in that toxin. And I started doing more of a fish, vegetables, things diet, no chicken, no beef, no pork. And I found my skin was clearing up and I felt better, and everything was working well, you know. So I kind of liked what I was doing and I kept going. It's been that way for 15 years. And
But
I think exercise is a key thing because that I do even feel better. And when I do go to a cardiologist, he'll say, "You look really good. Are you still doing treadmill? Are you still doing stuff?" And I'd always say, "Yes, yes, I am." So I like doing it. But you want to do it as often as you can. And he told me, stick to more like 45 minutes instead of 30, because you want to really work the arteries and the
Mhm.
heart to get it up to a level where you can make it beneficial. So, key thing is when you're ready, you go the direction of health. And I think when I hit 50, it was a light that went off. So that's just me as far as that. But as far as the old days go, back in the early 1900s, we didn't have the preservatives that we do in foods. They made food different back then, so you could do things differently. Nowadays, if you eat certain boxed foods, you would not believe the chemicals that are in them. So you try to avoid that. Try to avoid the packaging of canned foods and boxed foods, processed foods. And I think by doing that along with staying active, that helped me to continue to sing. When I'm on stage, I feel like I can do anything. And of course, back in the late 1900s, I used to smoke. So here I am, this stupid idiot smoking cigarettes. And finally, I stopped that, and I found that I could smell the shaving cream on my face. And I found that I was singing songs where I didn't have to take another breath. It was like I could hold out a phrase forever. And I was going, all I got to do is eliminate things that I'm doing to myself. And that's the key, I think. Try to look at your
Um,
life and eliminate.
so perhaps you can coach me through this next vocal rendition. I came up with this thinking about you and the group Classical Mystery Tour. The Classical Mystery Tour is dying to take you away. Dying to take you away. Make it today. Let me hear you do that one.
The classical mystery tour is coming to take you away. Coming to take you away. That's more of the key, but yeah.
Make it
And then
today.
I like
Oh,
the
so I said dying to take you away. Yeah. Did
well,
they ever say dying or is it always
there's
coming?
waiting, hoping, dying, and coming. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Ah.
So that's the four. You know, when you memorize a song, you think of one word that'll get you on the path. So it's waiting, hoping, coming, dying. Those are the
All right.
four words, and this way you waiting to take you away, and then the other one is hoping to take you away, and so and I always have to say that before the song, you know, because I never use cheat sheets. It's always just remember the song and its things. Yeah.
All right. I've got a new rendition for you. It's Inspector Clouseau sings the Beatles.
Okay.
He's a real nowhere man, Kitter, sitting in his nowhere man, making lots of nowhere plans with Inspector Dreyfus. So do
That's
you
funny.
guys ever clown around and change the lyrics to these songs when you're on a bus or a train or
Oh
waiting
God,
around?
yeah, of course. And I have done you know, of course not on stage, but I have done stuff to these songs that are just hilarious, you know. So, you know, it's that it goes without saying. You got to do that.
So tell us about how you blossomed. Let's take a look at you as a 10-year-old kid. Are you in Tucson at the time?
Yeah.
And the Beatles were already famous. When you were 10 years old, did anybody show you a 10-year-old picture and say, hey, you kind of look like McCartney?
Not at that age. No. I was a Beatle fan at 8 years old. So already I was a Beatle fan, and for show and tell in elementary school, I brought the 45 of All My Lovin' to school, and I was going to be Paul with a broom, you know, and I played the 45 in school, and I took the broom and I said, "Okay, I'm going to be Paul from the Beatles," to my classroom, and a lot of the kids just didn't know what I was doing. It was weird, you know, but I played the record and I would be pretending like I'm Paul, you know, and that was like the beginning for me of just being a Beatle fan. So then we got the Beatle wigs, and you got like a $2 Beatle wig in a package at the grocery store, and back in those days, you know, and that was the beginning of me wanting to be a musician. Now I wasn't exactly, you know, told that I looked like Paul or any of that until later when I was in a top 40 band. And when I was actually really playing music and really playing, you know, songs by McCartney, and people would come up to me and say, you know, when you were doing that song by Paul McCartney, you kind of looked like him when you were doing it. And I'd go, that's funny. And that was it. I didn't even think of it. I didn't think it was, wow, that's cool. Maybe I should do, you know, never thought that. So it wasn't until later that I really took it seriously to pursue playing Paul in a show.
Have you seen the YouTube video? It looks like the 1970s or early 80s, where McCartney is talking about being a lefty and George being a righty, and how they could get to the same mic because of that
Yeah,
V,
yeah,
and how one or both of them shook their heads. Have you seen that, where they talk about the head shaking,
yeah,
and George says to Paul, they went nuts about that one, Paul. And then they started using it, but they kind of got a little, they said it got out of hand after a while, the head shaking, so they had to
yeah,
calm that down.
yeah. It's funny because yeah, I've seen a lot of videos and interviews of McCartney, and yeah, you know, I kind of studied him. I mean, of course, in the very beginning, it was try to mirror this person live as an actor. So you're a musician. You've got to sing and play and all the things that you're doing, but then you've got to mirror his actions. So if I didn't get up on stage and move like him, the director of Beetlemania would say, "Okay, now look at the video now. Tell me what you think you're doing." And then they videotape me. So I'm playing whatever song, and they'd play it back and say, "Here's what you're doing." And I'd go, "Wow, that's weird. I didn't think I was doing that. I didn't know my head was going this way when it should be going this way, you know." So then when you play the next time you play the song, you've got to remember this is how you got to move, or this is how you got to stand, or this is how you got to approach it. And it was called Beatles school. We were in Beatles school for several months, studying and studying as an actor. So yeah, I think those interviews were very powerful because seeing it is believing it, and other people see that. You got to act. You're portraying probably the most famous musician on earth,
Yeah.
and people know. They know what you're doing right and wrong.
So I've got a trivia question before we get back to your life story. What happened on the 30th of January, 1969?
You've got me on that one.
Apple headquarters, 3 Savile Row.
1969, maybe that was the day they broke up.
This was the unannounced concert from the rooftop of Apple Corps headquarters.
Yeah. I didn't know it was that exact date, but yeah.
It was a cold, rainy day, and one or many of them had to borrow their girlfriend's raincoats because it was raining on them and it was cold.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite videos to watch, are them singing their 3 main songs. It was 42 minutes set before the Metropolitan Police asked them to reduce the volume. Okay, next trivia. Keyboardist blank played with the band that day.
Billy Preston.
Billy Preston. Do you know why he was brought in and who brought him in?
No.
So according to what I found years ago, George Harrison knew that they had a problem with karma. There was, problems within the group, disagreements, and disagreements that involved family members like wives. And some of them said, we don't need to do this anymore. And then they hadn't been practicing together. So all those years of honing their act, if you don't do that for a while, you could be rusty. And so George apparently brought Billy Preston in, who was on the upswing in his career. And he was the one that made them gel because he was still at the top of his game at the time. And they did. And when I've read the comments under the video, I love reading comments from people who know more than I do. They talked about how McCartney's bass at that time might have been the best bass playing he had done up until that time, and would be considered phenomenal bass playing by any bass player. So I was really happy to hear about that. Not just another great musician, but someone that, just if you just break it down to the bass and what he's doing, it was phenomenal job up on the rooftop.
Yeah, I agree. I loved that performance, their voices. I particularly loved when Lennon forgot the words to "Don't Let Me Down."
Yeah.
I love that realness.
Yeah.
Just they were humans. They were human. And but I'll tell you, McCartney has always been the spoon that stirred the pot in that band. And I've seen that. I've noticed it. Lennon, of course, was an incredible lyricist, and everyone will say that some of his lyrics are just off the charts, but just cool. Even in his solo works, life is what happens while making other plans. Just amazing stuff.
Can you give me a little of "He's as blind as he can be, just sees what he wants to see.
No man can you see me at all."
How about can you do Lennon on the rooftop doing "Don't Let Me Down"?
I'm not a Lennon guy. I mean, I could, I love the, I've got a feeling deep inside. Oh yeah. There are some vocal performances of McCartney that I've really just studied. And that, to me, I've got a feeling is just killer. He reminds me of a bear that's coming out of hibernation when he goes into the, I got a feeling, And it's just amazing that he had that power in his voice. He's got power.
Yeah.
But
The yin and the yang of those two, I've read people that said that the McCartney needed the darker side, the darker force and that power from
yeah,
Lennon. And that's one of the many things that made that group gel and be so captivating to people.
yeah, absolutely. It's well, it's a writing team that'll never happen again. It's a songwriting team that was, I mean, even in the early Beatle days, they would go into, like McCartney said, they went into every time they sat to write a song, they came out with a song. Not once did they didn't not walk away from a song. You know, that's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, to meet
What
that, you know.
what is it?
Make that kind of,
Six to 800 songs?
well, I don't know exactly, but I know that they wrote at least 300 and change that were recorded.
Hmm.
And so many recordings of stuff they just didn't have time to record. You know, they made careers for groups like Badfinger, and um, McCartney threw away songs that were number one hits. So it's kind of weird to think that there was that kind of talent lived in that band, and especially for such a short amount of time.
So they got out when they were still young people from the Beatles, and the Stones kept going. So I went to the Tattoo You concert in Norfolk, Virginia, back in 81, 82, whenever it hit Norfolk, when I was in college in Richmond, Virginia. And I remembered reading that Mick Jagger was doing these workouts so he could be that physical performer, capturing a lot of stage. And they built these stages where he could go through like the center of the crowd. And so he did these incredible, aerobics, and cardio funk aerobics was really big at the time. So he got dance practice and he got aerobic capacity. And if he's doing a 2.5 hour concert with some encores, he's ready for it. So here's a man who was in his 40s at the time. I don't know if Keith Richards was doing anything more than walking to the pub at the time, but he did what he had to do in an incredible way, and I'm sure he can still do a lot. I don't know if he wants to play 2.5 hours right now. You might know more than I do, but tell me about what you think of the word preparation, and does a 20-year-old need to do preparation just like a 40, 60-year-old person does in terms of physical and connecting your mind to your movement?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as a 20-year-old, I still had to warm up and I still had to take care of my voice, but not as detailed as when you get older. So, I like the way I rehearse or warm up for for a show now is a little more extensive than it would be when I was younger. So it just goes without saying, it's a little harder, but you still make it work. And you know, you could stay up real late at night and put yourself through a little more trauma as a young person. But now I would never do that. I would sleep as much as I could, take care of myself, do some warm ups, rehearse what I got to rehearse, and prepare for the show. Saving it for the show is the key. And I remember going on a plane one time, and somebody sat down next to me, and I they looked at me and said, "Hi, my name is Rita. What's yours?" And I had my blindfolds ready, so I said, "My name is Joe. Good night." And I had to be ruthless because
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
going to be, "Where are you from? What do you do for a living?" And I'd be like this,
Hmm.
the whole flight, and then I get to the gig and I'm worn out,
Yeah, yeah.
So you sometimes got to be ruthless. So you pretend you're sleeping or put on the earphones, you know. So yeah, you have to prepare more when you're older. You just do.
So Bruce Springsteen, known for in the 80s and 90s for 3 hour concerts with several encores and just putting everything he had. And he doesn't have what you would call a singer's voice. He has a little bit of rasp to it. I don't know if he does diaphragmatic breathing the proper way, how he could pull that off for 3 hours. I mean, it's like an out of body experience. Now, what do you think about some of these people? David Lee Roth, his screaming, again, a talented guy, but I don't think you would call him a proper singer. And even the proper singers like Pavarotti, they've had voice issues and voice abuse issues. So how does some of this happen with these long concerts?
Well, when McCartney goes on stage, or Bruce Springsteen, or Elton John, or any of these big icons, they've rehearsed. They have to. They go into a studio, they literally set up their whole stage and they rehearse everything. And I've heard interviews, you're getting ready for a big show. Sometimes McCartney will play a little club. He'll do his whole show in a tiny little club. And it's funny, I am actually doing that very thing now. I'm getting ready to do a show in Salt Lake City on July 16th with a small symphony orchestra. And it's a big show. A lot of people will be there. And I'm doing another show in a little private event. There might be 20 people there. And I'm going to be doing this show by myself. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, show it, hold it up there.
This is going to be roughly my show. Is it backwards?
No, I see it. All my loving I will give to you.
So I'm sitting here working on this little show I'm doing, and it's going to be just me with an acoustic and me on a piano, and I'm going to warm up. I'm going to put myself in a tough situation so that I can be ready when I need to be.
Are you warmed up enough to do the high parts of All My Lovin'?
Ooh, all my loving I will send to you. Oh yeah, I've got that, But it's funny. It's not so much, can I hit you some notes? The question is, for 2 hours, can you hit those notes? And that's what it is. You've got a stamina thing. Got to have that stamina going. So, I could sit and hit a note all day, but I've got to start from the beginning and go to the end. You got to think beginning and end and make it all good. And that's how you do it. You got to get on stage.
Is the timing the easiest part for you? Does that come from your soul, and then the other stuff is the trickier stuff, like the notes and the breathing and the complete song?
It's funny. You could sit and read the song on paper and you go, okay, I'm going to hit all the notes, but you've got to make the song yours. So you make it yours, and then you think the last row of the audience. So I'm standing there thinking, there's the people in front, they can see you, but you look out over the whole crowd and you make them feel that you're singing to them, that one person. And I've had people say, when he was doing Blackbird, I swear he was singing it to me. And I'm thinking, I couldn't see the audience, period, but I'm thinking outward. So yeah, you make it yours, and then it becomes a lot better of a song.
I came up with a line for you in your 20s when your dad's dropping you off at the airport to go on tour. It goes something like this. Hey, Tone, where you going with that guitar in your hand? Did he drop you off with your guitar at all at the airport?
Never. Really? Never. No. But I have actually gone to the airport and forgot my guitar.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. And I was thinking, I told my mom, who dropped me off that day, I said, you got to go back to the house and you got to grab my guitar. And she didn't know which one.
Oh no.
So I had to explain to her which one it was. It was a nightmare. And then she got back in time, had to go back out of the airport, grab the guitar and go back in. Because I figured if I make the flight, I could always rent a guitar, but that would have been hard.
So I'm thinking about, I was doing an exercise. So here you mentioned taking care of yourself. So this is about as light as a foam roller as you can get. This is one you can travel with. It's very light. This weighs as much as a ping pong paddle, just, styrofoam, padded
Yeah.
styrofoam. So I did my foam rolling, and then with about 12 tennis balls, I did my tennis ball rolling. So I'll start off on my glutes and my hip area and just angle, you work your angles, and then you're releasing the fascia, myofascial release. All the young pros are doing it, and all the old people like us and seniors, I think, really should be hitting this fascia and doing all these things. Some people say to do it after a warm up. I found that I do it on the carpet before I do any warm up. I'm very into health and taking care of myself, so I've already done a stretch at the end of the day before I went to sleep. So when I wake up, I'm feeling pretty good. I do this, and then I make a post. So if you put two of these together like that, and you're lying on the carpet, you can make an actual post, and you can go in here like a physical therapist, fingers and
Nice.
thumbs, and you can
Nice.
release all this stuff. And then I'm doing the scalp. I'm doing the face. Facial muscles are good for us
Feel it
to
now.
do. So you could try that. I mean, these are easy to take with you. And then when you're on your planes, you can take 1, 2, and then 3, 4, put them right to the side of your spine in the tissue here and in the arch. And you can and give yourself a little arch on the airplane as you're seating. So sometimes when I get up to move I'm always on the aisle seat. Somebody needs to go to the restroom. Sometimes I get up on a spur of the moment, and my balls are flying down the alley on the airplane. So people are going, "Hey, I got one over here. I got one over here."
Geez.
So I'm a known entity on the
my balls. Can you come find them for me?
I've lost my balls, George. So you fit the person that I want to interview. So my book number 2 is called The Aging Athlete, and it's about these people who are high performance people. So high school, college, pro, military, Broadway dancers, general contractors, musicians who tour. All these people are considered athletes based on the mind, body, and spirit high performance metric that they have to get out of themselves. And when the coach says go or the conductor says go, they've got to fire it up and do their job in a very efficient, and if it's competition, they have to do their best in that competition. So what I'm finding with these athletes is that they tend to be so into the performance and the winning, and they get coached in that area to the utmost degree that the whole idea of being balanced, wellness, downtime, recreation, relaxation, all that stuff gets put on the back burner. So when I find these people, and they could be a high school person, they could be an ex-military person, they could be a retired musician, whatever, they don't know how to go back into the ordinary world very well and take care of themselves in a balanced way. So that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about being a musician. And you mentioned a little bit about your story of taking care of yourself. How has that come to pass in your life, seeing people you perform with and some of their trials and tribulations, and what they've either not done that's broken them down, or what they've done that's allowed them to rejuvenate and to live a balanced life?
Well, as far as taking care of yourself and seeing people that have done that, there's some rock stars that I've noticed that are in top physical shape, and it translates to a good voice. I mean, Paul Rogers from Bad Company. This man has got to be in his late 60s, and he gets on stage. He's fit. You can just see it. And he gets up on stage and sings, and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. People like Mark Farner from Grand Funk Railroad. This
One of my
guy,
favorites.
yeah, he's in top shape, and you could see it in the old days when they were performing in the 70s or whatever, and they've kept it up. And then there are people that haven't, and I just rather than mentioning the ones that are not as good, and then of course some of them aren't with us anymore. Um, it's really sad because all they had to do was stay focused, you know, and I'd like to be that guy that's still going to be in good shape and singing and performing till I'm ready to stop, not because I have to stop.
So you mentioned Mark Farner, and I'm going to touch on something that I coach people on. So by the way, if anyone's out there and they need fitness and wellness and life coaching, I'm available. Just go to my website, Sifu, S-I-F-U, Slim, as in skinny, sifuslim.com, and I can do a remote session with you and see if there's a way I can teach you about some of the things I do. But Mark Farner, hardworking guy, naturally great structure. He's a strongly built person. So when you see him performing in the 70s, he really looks like maybe a swimmer or a gymnast. He's got that natural musculature and great voice, great guitar playing, and they're traveling a lot, working their tails off. Well, along the way, the drummer with the big hair and the other guy, they had a contract that was signed. You can see this great documentary on YouTube. And it was two people get to dictate what happens to the group. And those other two guys in the group basically cut Mark Farner out of the financial clout and swipe the money from him. And this is in a documentary probably filmed 10 or 15 years ago with Mark Farner.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And you would think that it has, like Leonard Skinner, some of those guys that survived have had some trouble with depression and losing some of their faculties. But Mark Farner hasn't. The last I saw of him in this documentary and maybe a few interviews after that, he seemed to say, I got a bad turn. This is what happened, but I'm making the best of it, blah, blah, blah. Well, when I've been suffering from anxiety or depression, which happens to all of us, I just did a talk in Hawaii, speaking gig.
Turn this air on. It's sweltering.
Sure.
Here. It's literally sweltering. I hope this isn't too loud.
Syracuse.
Let's see if it is.
I can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
Oh, good. Good.
So I just did a talk at a group in Oahu, and in my talk, I said, how many people in this audience have never been depressed before or had really painful anxiety? Nobody put their hands up, right? Everybody has gone through dark periods. And so I mentioned in my talk that back when I was in my early 30s, I had a relationship breakup and I had the blues, and I'm in my Taekwondo class in West Sacramento, California. And I asked my instructor, I said, hey, I'm not doing too well right now. Do you have any advice? And he was a man of very few words. He was only 18, but he was my instructor, like my Sifu. And he turned to me and he said, you got a little blues, huh? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I always feel better after a workout.
Yeah.
That's all he said. And so that's what I wonder if Mark Farner did, or he started performing, started riding a motorcycle, whatever, to get his mind off it and get his biochemistry helping his situation in a proactive way. What do you think about some of these things?
Yeah. When I was working out 3 to 4 times a week, just going on my own, my own lifestyle, I would get on stage and I could do anything. And of course, never, giving up smoking back in the 2000, and giving up certain things, and then you've just got that confidence. Like, I don't do this, I don't do that, but I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and you can breathe. So you got air, you've got energy, you've got all of these things. They kind of line up. And then when you're on stage, you've got the confidence that you need to do. And if you can do 20 push-ups, and you only have to do 1 to perform, then you've got that in your mind. Like if I can lift 500 pounds and I only have to lift 20, you know that I could lift 500 pounds,
No,
but
no.
you know, so it's just a matter of doing it. And I feel really good when I'm on the right path, and you can see it in other people. It's not something that, is not visible. Now, I met Neil Diamond, and Neil Diamond was older, you know, and his current status as an older singer was, he told me that he has to warm up doing different warm ups. So instead of, instead of any of that, he said, all I do is boom, no, and I do that. And he said, that's what I do now to prepare for whatever reasons. But everybody's different. So you got to do what you do, but you can't not do anything. You can't just expect to be good and go on stage. It ain't going to happen.
Preparation's a really big deal. And being at the best you can be, when you've worked on being the best you can be. And it's not just hard work, it's also the relaxation and the downtime. When you feel it, it's all over you, permeates your system. When people see you probably leaving your hotel, they can see the look in your eye, they can see how your posture is, how you're walking, and they can feel it. They can go, that guy Tony is ready for tonight. And I'm sure if you're doing 5 or 6 shows a week in Beatlemania, was that New York Beatlemania?
Yeah, and also on the world tour.
On the world tour. So if people are seeing you, they know they saw you yesterday, they know they see you different days. They can tell by looking at you and your physical presence if Tony's ready for his act tonight, if he's got that spark. And I'm sure you knew there were nights when you didn't quite have it, whether it was something going on in your life, you had a cold, there was some stressing factor going on in the world at the time. Maybe talk me through about some of that readiness stuff that you had to experience in Beatlemania.
Well, in Beetlemania, it was almost the same thing. I was not sleeping enough because there was always something going on. But I found myself singing with the best sound system money could buy then, and professionals all around me. And all I had to do was sleep. That was my key. Get some sleep. And that's a 20-year-old guy. All you had to do was get some sleep. And I never did drugs, and I never did the booze thing. So I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have that working against me. So all I had to do was get up with a nice, fresh voice, keep quiet day of show, and then warm up gently before the show, and then do a blowout performance. The next day, you repeat that. So you had to be very focused and very religious with your schedule. And people would say, "Let's go out, let's go party, let's go do this," and you'd have to say, "No, I can't do that." So it's just a matter of that's what you had to do then. And I kind of transferred that into my later performances. Same thing.
It's what being a professional is all about, and you wanted to be a sustainable professional, not somebody who lasted 8 months or 2 years.
Yeah, I've been doing this since '77. So, and nonstop. I mean, it has been a nonstop thing.
How are your ears?
How are my ears? I hear pretty well.
That's pretty good for all that loudness, right?
It's not that, I use in-ear monitors now, and I regulate what I hear. But yeah, it's a thing of you gotta. I mean, Beatle music is not exactly deafening on stage, so that was good.
Got it. That helped.
Yeah.
Not Iron Maiden.
No, not so.
take us through the physicality of your life in the Beatlemania era of how much stuff you had to do per day, where you got your food, how you said goodnight to your compatriots and friends, and how you put your daily life together at that time.
Well, I have to think of when I was on tour. You were living in an apartment, and you had to live kind of away from home. And like, for example, we were in Boston for 10 weeks, or Chicago for 6 months, or wherever for a month. And that kind of show, you were there a month minimum. And there were sold out shows every night.
Wow.
So you had to have discipline, voice lessons, eating right, all of that had to happen.
How did that come together? Did the management team put that together for you folks, or did you develop it on your own?
Basically, they said, whatever you want to do, we'll pay for it. That's it.
They knew a good thing was happening, and they wanted to empower you to continue.
I had a voice teacher, Giuseppe Balestrieri, and he used to give me voice lessons. And it was just good times, just focused, very disciplined kind of things that happened in my life. It was a great thing. It was a good start to my career. The first, I'd say, till about 83, that was me. And then after that, I just took it and ran with it. It was Beatles show, Beatles show, Beatles show. And now I'm doing a McCartney tribute. So it's really great. It's a good thing.
So we were talking about, in the beginning, I started to talk about the two highest times I've ever been in my life, and they were not drug related. They were my own body's endorphins and hormones related and feeling really good. So when you and the Classical Mystery Tour came to Santa Barbara somewhere between 07 and 08, is that correct?
Which time in Santa Barbara?
Yeah, in Santa Barbara at the big theater downtown.
Because I don't remember.
So somewhere right around there, you're at an ancient, 1910 theater on State Street in Santa Barbara. And I think you were here for a few nights. And so what we did is we prepared to be part of the event. we practiced Beatles songs, and we got Beatles attire and wigs, and we really did it up. We loved the whole costume and playfulness side. So we stood out, I think it was the Granada Theater.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. So we stood outside, and this group was a pretty well-heeled group. Average age of people would have been in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And so we were in our 30s and 40s at the time, and we were singing 1 and 2 lines of Beatles songs when people were walking in, and we were doing like a comedy between us. Where are we going, George? And then my girlfriend would say, to the top of the toppermost, and we just kept throwing in all the stuff, and we were actually getting in people's faces doing it, being really proactive, silly people, and they loved it. And so we got to participate with you guys, and it was a blast. So then when you started playing, so I didn't know much about the idea of symphonies and what happens with a symphony, and the Beatles could only do that in recording, correct? They never did that on a tour with a symphony?
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm watching you guys, and I'm watching the symphony, and the question in my head was, are these symphony players such pros that you could hand them their music, the day before, and the conductor says go, and everything just clicks, or is there a preparation that needs to happen?
I'll tell you what, I want to answer that, but I have to take a short little break. I'll pause the recording, and then we're going to come back to the Granada.
Okay.
Here we go. I'm pausing.
So Tony Kishman, musician, singer, traveling man, and now dad. And tell us about being a dad.
Well, I'm a dad again, so I have two older daughters, and Emery joined us about 8 months ago, and it's just been phenomenal. It's amazing. She is just a wonderful addition to my life, and she gives you new meaning. You know, she's new
Wonderful.
meaning. Hey, you're my
I'm
new
guess
meaning. Look
I'm
at
guessing
you.
she can hit the high notes.
I think she'll definitely be a singer. Try this. There you go. She loves to watch, and I sing to her all the time. She's my audience. I grab my guitar.
Can you sing us and her a little bit of "Woke Up, Get Out of Bed, Dragged a Comb Across My Head"?
Her favorite song is when I sing "Helen Wheels." I don't know why. It's said farewell to my last hotel. It never was much kind of a boat. She just loves it, you know.
Made my way downstairs and had a cup. Somebody's
fell out of bed, dragged a comb across my head. I found my way downstairs and drank a cup. Looking up, I noticed I was late. Found a coat,
grabbed my hat, made the bus in seconds flat.
That's pretty cool, that bit, you know. But you you had asked, how do you do an orchestra show?
Yeah.
And basically you get there the day before, and the morning of the show you load in, and the charts of all the music have been sent ahead, and the orchestra rehearses with you for 2 hours.
Have they rehearsed before you?
Around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and you spend the whole day rehearsing, and then you have dinner, and then you do the show with them. So they have one pass at those songs.
They haven't done it any preparation besides the time with you?
Not really. Not really.
And so do you have someone who travels with you that works in conjunction with their conductor?
Yes. We have our own conductor.
So who's conducting the whole show? Is it your person or their person?
We have our own conductor. Let's go put you in the jump seat. You want to go in the jump? Here, right here. Want to jump? Hold on. 1 sec. Pause. And there we go. Jump, jump, jump. Go ahead. Let me see you jump. Woo, woo, woo. Okay. Her mom had to get ready for her appointment today. And this one here, there you go. This one here needs my attention for a minute. Basically what you do is, we have our own conductor. So that makes it a lot easier, because he's the guy up there directing and organizing that orchestra. And we just run the show. You know, you don't sing full voice, but you do sing. You got to run Eleanor Rigby. You got to run She's Leaving Home. And you run the songs, and then that night you sing them with the full symphony. Got
it. So you're not belting it out, you're just running the songs.
Yeah, no, like you'll do maybe the first line, like Penny Lane, and you let the trumpet player learn the song.
So I mentioned getting high, so I'm all prepared. You guys come out and we're overwhelmed. You know, the whole moment is finally there. You come out in your outfits, everything's clicking, and we're exploding basically. And then the music. kicks in, and there it is. We're part of history, and we're part of the gift that you're bringing to us in the modern era. So it's so beautiful. So we did that. I'm guessing 2 hours. Maybe you had a pause in there for 15 minutes or something. Is that about what happened?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're exploding, and we're singing with you. We were up in the balcony, and we're singing with you, and other people were singing around us. So that's one of the highest I've ever been in my life. So I'm so blessed that I get a chance to share just that acknowledgement with you all these years later. And then, so that was in 2007 or 8. And then in 2011, I'm back home in New Jersey where I grew up, and I hadn't lived there since I was 18, and my parents were going to be away. And I got a chance to go in 2011 and live on the farm in New Jersey and work on a book and not have to worry about a lot of other things. And so I'm there, and I'm in a cafe in the little town of Clinton, New Jersey, and I see on the wall auditions for the play Oklahoma. And I hadn't been in a play since I was in 8th grade. I'd been a professional mascot for 4 years in my late 20s and early 30s up in Sacramento, but I had not been in a play. So I saw this, and I said, when are the auditions? And they were right now at the library, which was around the corner from the cafe. And so I went over there, and I sang Summer Wind Across the Sea. It sang Sinatra's Summer Wind.
Oh, yeah.
And they took me, and they took all these other people that auditioned, and they molded over, and they called me up a few days later, and they said, you get to be the federal marshal in the play Oklahoma. It wasn't the main 5 characters, but it was like the top 8 characters. I was in a fair number of scenes, but I didn't have to memorize the whole thing, which was good because I really didn't have time at that point in my life. But anyway, we practiced for about 3 or 4 weeks, 5 days a week, and we kind of gelled. And this is 120 people in this play, and then we're singing the grand finale. Oh, Oklahoma, where the wind goes, and we're doing this, and the audience. This particular audience, they were all people who were alive in the 40s. They were people in their 80s now. They stood up in the crowd. And so we've got 120 plus 300 some people belting this out. And it felt like it was lifting the auditorium off its pillars. I mean, I've never been that high, besides your event and this event in my life. And so the music and the performance and the human dynamic, I'm guessing that you felt this many times in your life when this comes together.
Oh, yeah. I'm just going to let her play on the floor a little bit. No, hold on. You come over here. There you go. The reaction that you get from performing live. This is so funny because she's going to grab my guitar. Emery, don't break my guitar.
While my guitar gently weeps.
Yeah. See what she does. Come here, you. I'll sing to you. See, watch this. She really, you can see her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life. See her face?
Oh, yeah.
You're only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see all your life. You were only waiting for this moment to be free. Now she's totally mesmerized. And every day I sing to her like that every day, and it's just amazing.
Do you do All You Need Is Love?
I do the song. Yeah, we do that song in almost all of our performances.
Can you lay a little of that down?
I can play a little of it, but it'd have to be on the bass.
Ah,
But that's more of a Lennon contribution, you know. But no, as far as performing, you do a song, and when they react, it's the reaction of the audience. You know what I mean? It's all about the reaction of what they think back. I mean, they give back to you. Getting an outstanding ovation on a song is killer. Like we do She's Leaving Home with an orchestra. It's just unbelievable to have that audience just, you know, it's just a beautiful thing and emotional when you do an emotional song.
what do you call that? Human dynamic energy mixed with like the myth of the past coming to alive years later. What happens there?
Um, it's funny. I don't really know, but it's a matter. Hey, she's practically naked now. She's working on. It probably won't
Disrobing.
be. I don't really know what makes it happen. I just know that I have a love for doing. No, you don't want pics. You don't want to eat pics. Here, you can have this. Hold on. You have this.
So maybe magic, magical mystery tour, classical mystery tour. It's a magical thing that happens when people do perform. It's a magical experience.
I think there are many times when we have created something really special on stage. Hold on. Here you go. You can have this. Here you go. Take this. Here you go. Well, this one here is going to be on my. Hey, you. She's going to be on my plate for a little while. Let me pause this.
Yeah, we can wind it down. We can.
I think she's going to give me a few minutes. Maybe not. Hey, what? Can you let me finish, please? Can you let me finish, please? Can you let me finish, please? Huh?
So I can ask you one question. We could wind it down.
Yeah.
So the magic that you've experienced in your life, I'm sure you've passed that on to tens of thousands of other people. What is the message that a performance musician and artist wishes to share about other people who may not have, the life of travel and the life of lighting people up that you've had, that allows them to experience part of that? What do you wish to share about what you've experienced and how that might translate to help the normal person in their normal day-to-day routine?
Well, if you love to sing and you love to perform and you make it your life, then, nothing is better than getting on stage and singing to people. There's nothing more rewarding to, hang on, get rid of this. Okay. All right, we're back. Nothing is more rewarding than to get up and sing yesterday and you nail it. You nail it down. You really do it well. And people say, when you sang yesterday, I was crying. I was in tears, and I always laugh and say, I didn't realize I sung it that bad. But I know what they meant, and see, the thing about what I do is I'm playing Beatle music. I'm playing McCartney music. And this is music that was, where you were when these songs came out. It was a part of your life, and I'm just bringing back people's, past.
Mhm.
So if I sing a song like Get Back or, Magical Mystery Tour or whatever, everyone remembers when it came out, especially the early Beatles songs. And then they go, oh, I remember when, the Beatles came out and this and that. And it's kind of like bringing back their life, their history,
Yeah.
their past, remembering their past. And to me, that's the special part of what I get to do.
Fantastic. How do, thank you for sharing that, Tony. How do people find out more about you and book you through your website? Where do they go?
Well, my website is liveandletdieshow.com. And of course, I do the show Classical Mystery Tour, classicalmysterytour.com. So I'm in 2 shows. And we're busy. Now we're getting real busy, But I do a lot of those, the solo McCartney shows with an orchestra. So we're doing a lot of those. And Emery here is ruthless. She said, I want to be a part. Hey, you.
So I'm Sifu Slim, sifuslim.com. Wishing you all the best in your health, happiness, and wellness. I'm so pleased that Tony Kishman shared part of his day with us today. And maybe we'll regroup with Tony again in the future. In the meantime, the magical mystery tour is dying to take you away. Dying to take you away. Make it today. Thanks so much, Tony.
Hey, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And, I have to say that being a new dad is really kind of keeps me going. There's a lot of energy that you have to have now. So add being a dad, you got to be on stage, you got to be singing. I recommend it. And nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you.
Sifu Slim in Santa Barbara, but traveling the world, and maybe I'll bump into you at one of your gigs at some point in the future. When you mentioned Salt Lake City, I started to get goosebumps because that's not too far. It's a direct flight from Santa Barbara. So you'll have to send me a link if that's still available for people to come and watch you.
You got to come to that. July 16th at Draper, Utah.
Can you send me a link to my email?
I will. I'll send you that link. And
Let's
you're
go.
my guest. Come to the show. You'll be my guest.
I would love to. My gosh, that would be phenomenal. I get to participate in all the energy you create and the talent, and I'm just happy to ride that wave with you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much. This one here is saying goodbye. Emery, say goodbye, little one. Okay. Thank you so much. You have a good day.